You park your EV outside on a hot afternoon, plug it in the moment you get home, and wake up the next morning wondering why your range looks worse than it did 6 months ago. You didn't change anything, the battery just quietly got a little older overnight. And the worst part? You did exactly what felt right. Every EV owner prepares for winter. You've heard it 100 times: cold weather kills range. The battery hates the cold. Charge before you leave. It's almost a ritual at this point. Plug in, preheat, check the range, go. But summer, most drivers treat summer like a free pass. No ice, no heating load, no frozen fingers on the charge port. The weather feels easy, so the car should feel easy too. Here's what that assumption gets wrong. Heat doesn't just affect your comfort, it directly affects your battery's temperature, your charging efficiency, and if the wrong habits stack up over enough hot days, your battery's long-term health. The damage doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly across a whole season of small decisions that each seemed perfectly reasonable in the moment. The lithium-ion battery in your EV has an optimal operating window. Most thermal management systems are designed to keep the pack around 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. When ambient temperatures climb into the 90s and beyond, that system has to work harder just to hold the battery in its preferred range. That work costs energy, and the hotter things get, the less efficient the whole cycle becomes. What makes summer genuinely tricky isn't any single factor, it's the combination. High temperatures, aggressive driving, heavy AC use, and charging habits that work fine in March can quietly stack into something the battery wasn't designed to absorb repeatedly. Most drivers never connect the dots until years later when range is shorter than it used to be, and nobody can point to exactly why. The mistake most EV owners make in hot weather. The single biggest mistake isn't leaving your EV in the sun. It isn't running the AC. It isn't even fast charging on its own. It's doing all of them in sequence without thinking about what's already happening inside the battery. Picture a typical summer afternoon. You've been driving for an hour. Outside temperature is 95 degrees. AC running the whole time. You pull into your driveway, battery temperature is elevated, the thermal system has been working hard the entire trip. And the first thing you do is plug into your level 2 charger, or worse, a DC fast charger, because you want to top up before tomorrow. That sequence, hard driving and heat, followed by immediate charging, is where the real damage happens. Each of those three things individually is manageable. The battery handles hot days. It handles fast charging. It handles aggressive driving. But when you layer heat on top of a warm battery and then push more energy into it, you create a stress environment the battery has to absorb on top of everything else it's already managing. Over one afternoon, the effect is negligible. Over an entire summer of the same routine, it's not. Never fast charge a hot battery immediately. After an hour of summer driving, your battery isn't just warm. It's operating near the top of its thermal comfort zone. Fast charging generates heat. That's not a flaw, it's physics. Pushing high current through a battery produces heat as a byproduct, and the faster you charge, the more heat you generate. Under normal conditions, the thermal management system absorbs this without issue. But it's starting from an elevated baseline when you've just driven in 95% heat. The system has to cool a battery that's already warm while simultaneously managing the heat from the incoming charge. Charging efficiency drops. The car may throttle charge speed automatically to protect the pack, and the battery spends more time at temperatures that accelerate chemical aging. The fix is simple and costs you nothing except a little patience. When you get home from a long summer drive, wait. Give the battery 30 to 60 minutes to cool down before you plug it in. If your car has a scheduled charging feature, and most modern EVs do, use it. Set it to start charging in the evening when ambient temperatures have dropped, overnight when the battery and the outdoor air are both cooler. Charging at night isn't just better for the battery. In many areas, off-peak electricity rates make it cheaper too. Before we continue, hit the subscribe button to stay connected. Never leave your EV sitting at 100% in the heat. This one is less obvious, but the data behind it is hard to ignore. A battery sitting at full charge is under more chemical stress than one sitting at 50 or 60%. The cells are at maximum voltage, maximum energy density, maximum internal pressure. Under mild conditions, that's manageable. Under heat, it becomes one of the fastest ways to accelerate long-term degradation. Parking your EV outside at 100% state of charge on a 100-degree afternoon isn't a single catastrophic event. It's a slow erosion, the kind that shows up 2 or 3 years later as a range number that's quietly lower than it used to be. Most manufacturers and most battery engineers recommend keeping your daily charge between 20 and 80% for exactly this reason. The full range is there when you need it for a long trip, but on a normal Tuesday in July, when you're driving 40 miles and parking outside all day, charging to 80 is a genuinely better choice than charging to 100. If your car lets you set a charge limit, and again, most do, setting it to 80% as your daily default costs you almost nothing in real range terms and gives your battery measurably less to deal with every time the temperature climbs. High state of charge plus extreme heat is one of the worst combinations for battery longevity. The good news is, it's also one of the easiest to avoid. Why your EV range drops more in summer. Winter range loss is visible and immediate. You lose 30 miles overnight in January, and you notice. Summer range loss is sneakier. It tends to happen gradually across the day and accumulate in ways that are harder to trace. Your battery cooling system runs harder in hot weather, and that work draws from the same battery that's supposed to be moving the car. Air conditioning, which runs directly off the high voltage pack in an EV, unlike a gas car where it runs off the engine, can trim real-world range by 5 to 17%, depending on how aggressively it's set and how hard the outside temperature is pushing back. Most studies put the realistic AC penalty somewhere between 5 and 10% in typical 85 to 90 degree weather. That's roughly 15 to 25 miles on a 250-mile range vehicle. Not a crisis, but meaningful enough to notice on a longer drive if you weren't expecting it. The other variable most drivers underestimate is the battery's temperature. Above the mid-90s, the thermal management system isn't just maintaining comfort, it's actively fighting to keep the pack in a safe operating window. That's energy leaving the battery without moving the car a single inch. Practical response isn't to suffer through the heat without AC, it's to drive smoothly. Use eco mode when you can, and if you're taking a long summer trip, plan your charging stops with a slightly larger buffer than you'd use in spring. 10 to 15% of extra margin covers the thermal load, the AC draw, and whatever summer traffic throws at you. The hidden problem with parking in direct sunlight. Your EV sitting in a sunny parking lot for 6 hours on a hot afternoon isn't just uncomfortable to get back into. It's doing real work inside the battery pack the entire time. Direct sunlight heats the cabin dramatically. Interior temperatures in a parked car can exceed 140 degrees on a hot day. The battery pack sits below the floor, insulated from the worst of it, but ambient heat still climbs into the pack over time. The thermal management system activates to keep temperatures in range. That draws from the battery, which means your car is consuming energy while parked, doing nothing except protecting itself from the heat. When you return to the car, the AC has to work harder to drop the cabin temperature from 130 degrees to something livable. That's a longer, more energy-intensive cooling cycle than if the car had been parked in shade at 90 degrees. The battery starts the drive already warm, and if you're heading out for a long trip, you're beginning from a worse thermal baseline than you needed to. Shaded parking isn't always an option, but when it is, it matters more in summer than most drivers realize. A parking garage, a covered structure, or even a shaded street spot is doing real work for your battery every hour the car sits there. If shade isn't available, a reflective sunshade across the window shield reduces interior temperature meaningfully. It's a $20 solution to a problem that compounds over hundreds of hot parking sessions across the life of the car. What smart EV owners do instead? The habits that protect your battery in summer aren't complicated. They're just deliberate. Park in shade whenever the option exists. On a day when temperatures are pushing into the 90s and beyond, that choice alone changes how hard your thermal system has to work while the car sits, how much cooling it needs before you drive, and how warm the battery is when you eventually plug in. Use your car's preconditioning feature. If your EV supports remote climate control, and most modern ones do, cool the cabin while it's still connected to the charger before you leave. The energy comes from the grid, not the battery. You leave with a comfortable car and a full state of charge, and the AC doesn't have to sprint from 130 degrees the moment you pull out of the driveway. Let the battery cool before you charge. 30 minutes after a hot drive makes a real difference. Set scheduled charging for overnight. Use the 80% charge limit as your daily default and save the full charge for road trips. And ease up on fast charging during heat waves. The convenience is real, but so is the thermal load on a battery that's already warm. If you can get by with a level 2 charger, summer is the season where that choice earns back more than you'd expect. What I'd personally do during summer, if I own an EV and wanted the battery to be in the same shape 5 years from now as it is today, summer is when I'd be most intentional. I wouldn't leave it parked at 100% charge in the heat. That combination, high state of charge and high ambient temperature, is the thing battery engineers consistently flag as one of the primary drivers of long-term degradation. It's also the easiest one to avoid. I wouldn't plug in the moment I got home from a long drive in hot weather. The battery needs time to cool. That's not inconvenient, it's just a different sequence. Drive home, wait, then charge overnight. I'd use preconditioning every hot morning. Every time the car was plugged in, free cooling from the grid is always better than cooling that costs you range mile. And I'd stay around 80% for daily charging throughout the summer. The range difference on most commutes is invisible. The difference in battery health over 3 summers of hot days is not. Summer feels easy on an EV. That's exactly why it catches so many owners off guard. The habits that hurt the battery are the same ones that feel completely natural. Plugging in immediately, charging to full, parking wherever is convenient. Drop a comment below. Do you notice a range difference in summer? And have you changed how you charge when the heat hits? Subscribe for more EV content that gets straight to what actually affects your car.